Hey guys, and welcome to F1 Unfiltered. My name is Luther. As always, I am your host. Welcome back to those who are returning and welcome to our new subscribers. Today, we've got a brilliant topic to discuss. So I'm gonna let Yanni introduce it to you guys.
All right, so today's motion, guys, is whether Verstappen, if he wins, in our view, it will be when he wins, this championship, his fourth championship of his career, is it his best ever season?
The crazy thing is, I think all of Max Verstappen's titles have actually been insanely impressive. You look back at his first one, the battle with Lewis Hamilton that went the entire season. It's incredible that people actually sit there and act like Lewis Hamilton deserved that title. Verstappen was the best driver by far. He led more laps than every other driver on the grid combined that season, and went on to win the championship in the second fastest car on the grid. His second season, he put forth the largest comeback in F1 history for a points margin, coming back from 46 points behind Charles Leclerc. That's the most anyone's ever done to win a championship. And his third one is probably the one that I would compare to this one. He was the most dominant driver in F1 history that year. People have had more dominant cars. No one has been that dominant. Only person you could argue has been that dominant was Michael Schumacher in his most successful year with Ferrari. That's the only season I would compare to this year's version of Max Verstappen. The others, whilst they are ridiculously impressive, I think this season stands alone with that one.
I wasn't even meant to be in front of the camera for this episode, but Luther has literally just said a few ludicrous things that made me so want to be in front of the camera to correct him. Right, you mentioned the first season. We all know the illegal season. Now, I'm not arguing against you with Verstappen being very good that season, but he also did do a few illegal stuff. Remember Brazil, when he pushed him off, there was a bit of that argy-bargy, I like to call it, right? Also, let's just go straight to Abu Dhabi, right? Hamilton flew off, bro. Red Bull were literally praying for a safety car. And the only reason Verstappen won that season was not through his skills, was through illegality, bro.
No, Mike, that was so not right.
The second season, where Luther mentioned that Verstappen clawed back the biggest points gap in F1 history, right? The 46 points. That was after the first 3 races. I wouldn't even count that as the biggest points gap in history, right? Norris, what he's doing is having to claw back a big points gap, but that's through his own doing, okay? A lot through his own doing. Verstappen was more Red Bull, all right? And that is towards the end of the season where there's high pressure. Literally, Verstappen had the whole of the season to claw that back. And then the third season was the most dominant season because all the other drivers and cars were shit. And also, I just don't, for me, this is where Luther and I would disagree, but for me, it's not that impressive that, okay, you're dominating, you win in every race. I do give it to him that you're still dominating in every race, but come on, guys, like, Perez looked good there in that season. Were we even considering Perez for the championship after the first 5 races when he was like king of the street tracks?
Are you trying to say that none of Verstappen's titles are impressive?
No, I'm saying that this one is impressive.
This one, yeah, okay, so
This season's impressive.
2021, he wins the race before the final season if Lewis doesn't hit him out in Silverstone and if his tyre doesn't explode in Baku. Ignore Silverstone, if he just doesn't crash out in Baku with his tyre exploding for no reason, he wins the title before the final race of the season. 2022, yeah, I was being cheeky. Ferrari got messed up by TD45, we know what happens, it still hurts me to think about it. 2023, I think, is one of the most impressive victories in F1 history, one of the most impressive seasons in F1 history. And the reason I think that is, you look at Hamilton, he's had 2 of the most dominant cars in F1 history. We'll look back at the 2020 Mercedes. They had the fastest car in Formula 1 history. Tell me why they didn't win all but 1 race. Verstappen right now, the ability he has right now, you give him that Mercedes, no one else but his teammate is winning a race. So when I see Verstappen do that in his Red Bull, which statistically was closer to the competition than the Mercedes is in those 2 years that I've given you, how can I say that that's not impressive?
This season, if Verstappen wins, not even if, when Verstappen wins, it will be the greatest title winning season of his career, is the fact that he's had to do it all by himself. A lot of these drivers that win the championship have their teammate to thank. And the most recent cases would be Bottas with Hamilton and the famous Valtteri James. And that for me just shows how good Verstappen this season has been, when every race that he's been either top 3 or he's won, Perez has literally been fighting a mid-table battle or like top 10 who no one really gives about it.
He's not had the best car since round 6 of a 24-round season. We have 5 races left. And he's 56 points clear. It's brilliant. It's ridiculous. It's a bit like Jenson Button in 2009, where Button won 6 of the first 7 races and I got 2 podiums in the last 10. But Max Verstappen has made this season hell for Lando Norris. He's made it impossible for Norris to catch up with him. He's been brilliant.
USA, Texas, right? The last race that we just watched. Each time they would bring up the ERS thing on the last lap, you would see Verstappen had 90% ERS left, right? Whereas Norris had 50%. Now that's absolutely crazy, given that Norris also had DRS, right? So Verstappen, if that doesn't show you what an insane driver Verstappen is, the guy behind him is using ERS plus DRS and still could not catch him, right? Still could not get that gap. Even Norris post-race said, that was my one and only opportunity to overtake him at the point that he did. And what happened when he tried to overtake him at the point that he did? Verstappen knew, come overtake me, I'm going to push you wide. I'm going to make you try and get a penalty. And hopefully the stewards will agree with me that you got a penalty. And it was just pure brilliance.
Verstappen has historically been appalling at Singapore. He's not been good. Red Bull haven't been good in recent times. But Verstappen manages to put a car that shouldn't be second in Singapore. We've seen some cars win drivers' championships for drivers. Max Verstappen's winning this title for that car.
For me, with a great season, right, it's when the drivers are pushed to their limits. There's pressure on them. There's so much pressure on them. Like, okay, I've really got to perform somehow. I've got to extract the most out of the car. I've got to extract the most out of myself as a sportsman, as an athlete, as a driver, mentally, physically, try and do everything possible to win. And Verstappen has done that. Luther mentioned he hasn't had the fastest car since round 6. There is a caveat to this being Verstappen's best season. If you watch our latest video, which we'll promote right now, in that Lando Norris has been the worst title challenger. Because realistically, I think if we ask any F1 fans, and if we ask you guys, if it was anyone else but Norris, would Verstappen have won the championship this season? I'm saying have won, bro. He's not even won it yet.
In doing this video, I've come to realize that this season, what he's done is absolutely ridiculous. And some of his victories, I think, have been way more impressive than his 22nd victories. If you look at his wins this season, Bahrain, he was 24 seconds away from the nearest rival, which was Carlos Sainz. He was, I think, 12 ahead of his own teammate, Sergio Perez. But I think Canada was more impressive than that. I think Spain was more impressive than that. Imola, he won by less than a second. I think more impressive than those dominant wins because he knew exactly what he needed to do in order for Lando Norris to not catch him in those races. He completely outwitted and outsmarted an entire Formula One team.
I just want to jump in on Luther's point about Verstappen being calculative this season, right? And it makes me think of McLaren's old driver and one of the best drivers, Alain Prost, right? He was known for being such a calculative driver. If he needed to finish 5th, he would finish 5th. It wasn't pretty, but he got the job done. And that's why he's won 4 world championships. And who is about to win their 4th world championship?
When you sit there and you actually think about what the guy's done, finishing in the podium, just doing enough mathematically to make sure that Lando Norris isn't outscoring him by enough to catch him. Same thing he's doing in the car, making sure Lando Norris can't catch him in terms of the gap. I think you add that all together, this has been nothing short of a masterclass of a season by Max Verstappen.